So, The Green Hornet, this is the new Michel Gondry film starring Seth Rogen, Jay Chow, Christoph Waltz and Cameron Diaz as well. Basically following the story of Seth Rogen's character called Britt Reed, who inherits a media empire from his father, a newspaper, and decides to use his wealth and power to fight crime with his sidekick, Kato, played by Jay Chow. Now, that's the basic plot of the film, and it's a film that I actually feel like I need to defend, so let's get into that. Okay, so people have been giving this film a really hard time for being an almost made-by-committee superhero film, but I never really got that impression. Now, I knew going in that it would not stylistically match Michel Gondry's other films, because I thought it's just not realistic to expect Michel Gondry to be able to make almost a Swedish version of The Green Hornet, which is what I really wanted to see, but I thought, no, I'll make do with what he's going to do, which will probably be a very mainstream, a very slick action movie, but knowing that it was written by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, I thought, you know, this could be good, it could be a witty film, so I was going to give it the benefit of the doubt, so that's what I did when I went in. And I have to say that watching The Green Hornet, I actually saw it in 3D, but the 3D was redundant, that's besides the point, because everybody knows by now it's very hard to use 3D correctly, and I think Avatar is the exception that proves the rule. You know, the 3D in that was so good that it just shows that these other films that are post-converted 3D just don't work. Anyway, that's besides the point. I did think that The Green Hornet was an impressive film, and it was the most fun I've had in the cinema since watching films like Kick-Ass and Scott Pilgrim. I would use it in the same sentence as them, not in terms of quality, but in terms of style and just overall enjoyment of the picture. Okay, so 90% of this film does look like a slick, glossy, made by Hollywood superhero movie, and follows that kind of cliched superhero trope. But the things that I really enjoy about it, the performances, I think, that are actually really funny. I think everybody in the film is inherently funny, which is what you want from a film like this. One criticism I do have is that Christoph Waltz obviously plays Hans Lander in Inglourious Bastards. He was criminally underused. I mean, his total screen time must have been something like 15, it can't have been more than 20 minutes, and he was essentially playing Hans Lander again, but kind of a knowing version of Hans Lander, in that he was almost poking fun at the role he played in Inglourious Bastards, and that aspect I liked, but I would have preferred it if he had more screen time to do more with the character and be more than a Hans Lander rip-off. I mean, Christoph Waltz is obviously an actor who's going to have great range and great ability, but honestly, wasn't given the chance to do anything but be himself in this movie. So that's one criticism I have, although I did enjoy watching him, especially at the very beginning when he exchanges dialogue with James Franco's character. That made me laugh. I thought that was very funny. I have to say, though, Seth Rogen, this is a guy I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. In some of his movies, such as Knocked Up, I think he's really good when he's playing himself. In other movies, like Zack and Miri Make a Porno, I think he's very detrimental to whatever film he's in when he's playing himself. Now, in this movie, he is again playing himself, and people have criticised his performance because he's basically the most unlikable protagonist you're likely to see this year. But I honestly thought that suited the film. I thought, you know, a character who's had the upbringing that he's had, you know, he's been given everything he wants, and you know, he kind of had a love-hate relationship with his father. I just see him turning out like that. I honestly bought into the character and quite enjoyed watching him, and especially the chemistry between him and Jay Chow's character, Kato. I thought their chemistry was really funny, and I've heard criticisms that people have had saying that Kato should be played by an Asian actor who can speak fluent English, but I actually thought Jay Chow's kind of broken English added, not necessarily to the humour, because, you know, it kind of comes across as being a stereotype, but it adds to the interplay between the characters, and makes the relationship feel a bit more organic, that there is that kind of language barrier between them, and makes some of the exchanges all the funnier for it. There are some lines of dialogue in this film that had me absolutely keeling over with laughter, and my sense of humour is kind of odd in the fact that I'm difficult to make laugh, and there is really no consistency to what makes me laugh, because I enjoy really intelligent humour, and then the simple things also make me laugh. Like, I won't ruin all the one-liners for you in this film, but the one line that I will tell you that made me just roar with laughter uncontrollably was when the Green Hornet and Kato go to the wrong side of town to basically find some bad guys to beat up, and Seth Rogen looks up at this telephone wire going across the road and sees a pair of shoes hanging from it, and he says, "Oh no, Kato, I think we're in the hood." You know, that honestly is, I think, one of the funniest lines I've heard recently. Like, I couldn't stop laughing. Now that probably says a little bit about me and my sense of humour. But there are moments like that in it that I think are genuinely funny and genuinely charismatic. I do think the script, for the most part, is generic, but I think some of the dialogue saves it, especially the way it's delivered by these comedic actors. I honestly thought it's worth the price of admission to make you laugh. Another thing that you'll really get out of the film and really like it for is the fact that you get a lot of bang for your buck. The set pieces, I think it's about 2 hours long, but it doesn't feel it. I was completely kind of into it. I was really enjoying the film, and I don't know why, because every part of me was like, you shouldn't be enjoying this, it's kind of generic and Hollywood, but for some reason I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, shallow, but a good, fun action movie. And the action itself, I mean, the ending set piece is action all the way, and I mean, you've got Christoph Waltz running around in a gas mask, and you've got machine guns firing, and Seth Rogen driving half a car with turret guns mounted on the bonnet of it. I honestly thought the action was really well done, and Michel Gondry shows that he can actually stage action scenes better than most mainstream action directors. At no point did I have trouble figuring out what was going on, who was where in relation to the bad guys, blah blah blah. I thought the action was really well staged, and it actually was quite impressive. So my overall feelings about the Green Hornet is that it's not the sum of its parts. That it should have been a brilliant, kind of irreverent, weird, like, imagine, if anybody who's seen Be Kind Rewind, Michel Gondry's other picture, imagine a Swedish version of the Green Hornet where, they had tinfoil guns and stuff. Like, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see Michel Gondry do a comic book movie like that, like a Swedish version, but we didn't get that. We got a slick Hollywood blockbuster with just little glimpses of Michel Gondry. Like, there are certain scenes in this, certain moments where you look at them and you think, yeah, this is definitely Michel Gondry that's made this. But for the most part, it could be Brett Ratner, but it's still an enjoyable film. The actors are hamming it up and having fun with it. The dialogue, for the most part, is kind of generic in the script and stuff, but it has its moments of really witty one-liners. I do think it's a really enjoyable film. I mean, as a film, looking at it objectively, it's a 3-star movie because it is middle of the road, average, nothing special. However, for how much I enjoyed watching it, I have to say that I would give it 4 stars, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for that, but I really enjoyed it. It gave me the same sense of enjoyment, as I said earlier, as Kick-Ass and Scott Pilgrim. I thought it was a really enjoyable time at the cinema. I think if you were to go out with your friends and have a few drinks first and then go see the Green Hornet, you'd have a really good time. So I recommend it under those kinds of circumstances. It's not the kind of thing it's not a date movie, it's not something to go and watch seriously if you go into a cinema on your own. Go with a group of friends, have a few drinks first, and you'll really enjoy the film. So I give it 4 stars.